The mistletoe margarita, the Scrooge driver, the North Pole punch. The holidays call for cocktails, so get everything you'll need for them delivered with Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery. So
what's it gonna be?
Classics like Bullet Bourbon, Don Julio Reposado, or Kettle One, or maybe something new. Find it all on Drizzly, where you can get beer, wine, and spirits delivered for any holiday festivity. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com today. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations.
Welcome to WSHIT's Heart of the Arts, our ongoing series dedicated to showcasing the greatest artists, actors, and musicians of our time. It is hard to put into words the contribution to the arts this week's musicians have made to music. They have touched souls in ways only God Himself could manufacture. The voice of an angel, the defining vocalist of a generation, lyrics only Shakespeare could conjure up. These are just a few of the things that have been said about our artists this week. I am speaking, of course, about Puddle of Mudd and lead singer Wes Scantanilin. Let's go live to WSHIT's Artist Corner, sponsored by Gone Gone. Gone Gone, when gonorrhea needs to be gone. Trust Gone Gone. And now, live to the corner where lead singer Wes Scantanilin will lead Puddle of Mudd in a rousing rendition of Nirvana's About a Girl. Absolutely breathtaking. Thank you, Wes and Puddle of Mudd. Now, we'll be back after this quick commercial break with more of Heart of the Arts.
Early 2020, the world shut down. Stores, restaurants, schools, and whole communities shut their doors in an effort to protect human life. As the world quickly changed, one man went on Facebook to get a degree in internet epidemiology. Bryan, along with his lab assistant Hoadley, are curing coronavirus by commenting on fake news and reposting recipes of secret virus cures from a friend of a friend who works high up in government. Join Bryan and Hoadley as they discuss the world and life during this forced interruption. Learning, laughing, and loving in this real-life commercial break. On this episode of The Commercial Break.
Like I said, no one told me it was going to be this much work, Hoadley. No one said anything. Fuck all those people who I was... Hey, I'm having a baby. Oh, that's great, man. Changes your life. Shit, man. You just you're never going to know love like you knew love. No, I'm never going to know sleep deprivation like I know sleep deprivation now because of this extra child that I have in my house. I am going to reason with him as if I was standing on the other end of the door. I'm going to go, okay, listen, man, you're a fucking shithead and we both know it. You're probably into drugs. You're into no good. You've already had sex twice and you're only 4 years old. What can I do? What can me as a neighbor? How can I step in and interrupt somebody who, knows my way into somebody else's life?
I know about subwoofers.
I know about substations. Does their power go out?
The next episode of The Commercial Break starts now.
Shoo-ba-dip-a-doo. I think I'll watch the documentary on substation power. Look at that.
Hello.
More documentaries on substation power. I just got done explaining to Chrissy Hoadley why, if your power goes out for longer than 10 or 15 minutes, it's likely a substation. And she was fascinated by my incredible knowledge of all things all knowledge that you'll never need ever in life. Is anyone ever sitting around going, I wonder why the power went out for more than 15 minutes? No. You're like, where's my fucking Netflix, man? My internet don't work because the power's out.
That's exactly what we did, and we went straight to our computers and turned on our phone hotspot to watch your show.
Good for you. You guys are smart. Look at that. You're dealing with a couple crack cookies there. I call them crack cookies. Cha-cha-cha. Are we on episode number 18? We're on episode number 18. Are we?
Woo! Yes.
Is it number 18? Okay, I'm just checking in. I just want to make sure you're paying attention because clearly I've got my shit together. I'm just making sure my co-host is under contractual agreement to keep her shit together. So episode number 18 of your favorite show on the podcast, The Commercial Break. Make sure to go to tcbpodcast.com. That's where you can find all the show notes. Find out more about Chrissy and I. Drop us an email, or you can join the break room. And now the break room has its very first volume 1 of the break room with extra content and all kind of goodies. So if you go to tcbpodcast.com and you join the break room now, instead of getting a welcome letter, you're just going to get the first volume of the break room right into your email like magic. Little magic email men are going to come and drop that extra content right into you. And make sure
email stork.
It's the email stork.
That's where emails come from.
Because that's where emails come from. Daddy put his RAM in your mommy's CPU and RAM CPU, and look at that. You've got emails everywhere. And you can like us. You can follow us at The Commercial Break on Insta. Okay, I'm getting hip with the kids. I realize that IG is no longer a appropriate term for Instagram. It's Insta. So on the Insta at The Commercial Break, you can also watch us or listen to us on YouTube. Soon to be watch us. But as I mentioned in the break room, there's a layer of complication to putting something on YouTube right now because of the pandemic. And so I'm trying to work it out. Yeah, it really is. It's very complicated because instead of one camera, you have to have 2. So it adds 100% more complications.
I have 2 cameras, I feel like, on my new iPhone that I got.
You do have 2 cameras. I wish we could use those 2 cameras to record the YouTube version of the show, and then we just have it all down pat. But unfortunately, now the truth is that it's just, you just got to go and do it. And I got a child that's, like I said, no one told me it was going to be this much work, Hoadley. No one said anything. Fuck all those people who I was, hey, I'm having a baby. Oh, that's great, man. Changes your life. Shit, man. You're never going to know love like you knew love. No, I'm never going to know sleep deprivation like I know sleep deprivation now because of this extra child that I have in my house. And by the way, she melts my heart. It is true that the little girls for daddies, they just melt your heart. And now I'm all protective, and I'm already thinking. I was watching a television show where there were I'd say girls in their 20s, like college age girls. And they, the new thing with bathing suits is for them to be cheeky, right? They're cheeky bathing suits.
Oh yeah. That's
you don't cover up your butt anymore. And they wear them young, 16, 17.
Our 15
15
went to the beach
15
recently, and we were like, oh, she has one. Okay.
She had a cheeky bathing suit?
The cheeky.
So I am.
Do it while you're young.
My wife is already telling me that I cannot make any decisions regarding the clothing for my daughter because I'm already upset at the women that are on the television that their parents let them out of the house with that cheeky bathing suit. And Astrid's like, you realize they're like college age girls, and I'm like, give a shit. I give a shit. You're not supposed to show your ass in Publix. I just said show your ass at Publix. You have to wear a mask, but feel free to show your ass. So I'm already protective of my, 2-minute-old daughter and how she's going to be dressing. This is making me very upset, Hoadley.
You were a young boy once.
I was a young boy, all boned up and ready to go.
You know what they're thinking, yes.
So
I think that's the very protectiveness that's coming.
You know what? I agree with you is that my fear has always been is that if I have a daughter and now I have one, the reality is here is that the universe and the karma are going to come back and bite me right in the ass. That my daughter's going to be 15, 16 years old, right? And then Bryan Green's going to show up at the door.
Right.
Hey, what's up, dude? Yeah, listen, I'm here to take Mia out for, just going to drive around and shit. I'm probably going to, put my hand up her shirt, stuff like that. So can you tell her to come down? And I'm going to be like, the hell you are, son. But if that guy comes to the door, I am going to reason with him as if I was standing on the other end of the door. I'm going to go, okay, listen, man, you're a fucking shithead and we both know it. You're probably into drugs. You're into no good. You've already had sex twice, and you're only 4 years old. And here's the deal. I'm going to give you $100 bill and a 6-pack of Bud Light, and I'm going to tell you to go the fuck away, and I'm going to deal with my crying daughter up there because I'm much better equipped to deal with it than you are, right? So just go away. And so I told this to a friend of mine, Raphael, and Raphael said, this is years ago, he says this, before I even thought children were an option for me, right? He says, but Bryan, if Bryan Green really showed up to your door and that really happened, here's what would go on. He would accept the $100 in the Bud Light, and then he would drive the car around the back of the house and knock on the window and go, your dad gave me $100 in Bud Light. Let's go. True story. That's right. So, I think that part of the fear that I have about my daughter is that I know what kind of assholery is out there. And that's, I wasn't like an abusive creep or anything, but I was interested in women mainly through most of my young adult life. And that was the only thing that got me up in the morning.
Yes.
That and my budding music career.
I've known you for a long time.
Yes, you have.
I remember.
Yeah.
Thank God Astrid came along is all I know.
Changed my life. It changed my life in ways big and small, all of them for the better. So if you go to tcbpodcast.com and then join the break room, you get the new volume 1 of the break room, and follow us at Insta and all that other stuff. And I do want to say, if you get a chance, share the show, leave a review. Some people have been leaving a review, and I like that. So I appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. I have to get right into it today, and I'm a little charged up, and I got to tell you why I'm charged up.
Vroom.
What's that?
Vroom.
Vroom, vroom. Yes, I'm all boned up, and let me tell you why. There's a couple, you start a podcast like this. I'm just going to be frank with the audience because I feel like the audience would be frank with me if they were here, sitting right here. They probably, boo, probably what they'd be saying. Get off the fucking microphone. So I had to be honest with the audience, is that when you start a podcast like this, you have to start thinking about ways to get outside of your sphere of influence. I only have so many friends on Facebook, which is not many, and most of them don't want to hear my podcast. My family doesn't even want to hear my podcast, mainly because they listen to me all the time. And there's only so far that posting on Facebook is going to get you as far as an audience is concerned. So when you start a podcast like this, if you really give a shit and you want to have some traction, you got to start getting outside that sphere of influence and grab some more attention. So like I told you, we had a mildly successful internet marketing campaign on Google where Google spent my money for terms like best podcast to have sex to and best podcast to go to sleep to, which I still agree with that one. I left that one up.
My two favorites.
That's right. And then we went out there, and there's other podcast platforms, like 1 million podcast platforms out there. I could name them all.
Exploding
I won't go through.
right now.
Overcast, Castros, Podbean, Pod Heaven. I don't know. They're all out there. And what they do is they suck up my content and they distribute it to you through your favorite application or through your computer. And there's 1 million choices out there right now. It's a big deal because there's lots of content, and they make money one way or another off of my content. How do they do that? Is because they can run advertisements on different places inside of the app. So while they're may not be making money during my particular show, they're making money by my content, by millions of people's content being on their application. It's the trade-off. You distribute it to your audience, and I'll let you make money off of my podcast. Millions of podcasts, not specifically mine, but you get the point. You get the point. Charged up.
I do. We worked in radio, and that's how it worked there too.
Yeah, that's it. I'll distribute your content, and I'm going to make a bunch of money off of you. Right. And so in order to get in front of a podcast audience, sometimes what you do is you go pay those people money to get in front of that audience. You might put a banner ad up, or maybe you run some audio on Spotify, or you do something like that. And I've been out there testing the waters just to see if we can get a couple additional listeners, grow the audience base, and, see if there's, see if there's anybody out there that wants to listen to us.
Please.
So far, the results are not promising, Hoadley, but I'm working on it. And so I have had relatively positive feedback from all these little platforms. I go out there, I say, hey, can I buy some space? And they say, yes. It's, who doesn't want my fucking money, right? And so we've done this like 2 or 3 different places. We run some ads on Spotify, and then we put a couple banner ads up on 2 different locations. And I was going to go for a third. I found a podcast app I thought was interesting enough. It's new, it's fresh. It seems like all the kids are using it. And I send them an email and I say, hey, listen, my name is Bryan. I've got this shitty little podcast called The Commercial Break, and I'd like you to take my money and put me in front of your audience. And well, here's what they said. We here at Blibbity Blobbity Pocket, Blibbity Bobbity Podcasts have reviewed content for all creative and advertisers and have decided that your podcast does not fit the correct content criteria for advertisers. We apologize, but we cannot accept your advertising dollars at this moment. And I'm like,
wow,
fuck yourself, man. I'm good enough to be on your platform so you can make a dime off me, but I'm not good enough to then spend money advertising to get eyeballs onto my podcast? Is that too much to fucking ask? What are you concerned about? I don't understand. Okay, maybe Disney won't advertise with you because the commercial break's talking about tits and ass. But what's more important? Bryan Green distributing the commercial break through your podcast application or Disney advertising with you? Mm-hmm. Oh, you get what I'm going with this?
I'd have to review the podcast application.
I'll give it to you separately, right?
I am not sure. I am not completely sure that the young kids want to listen.
No. What's more important? ABC buying $1 million worth of advertising or Bryan Green paying you $800 to put a banner ad up? And let me explain. My $800 comes with my content on your application, and I'm pretty sure that that's what everybody wants to hear. In the long run, it may not look like it makes sense now, but in the long run, you're going to be sorry you didn't accept my advertising dollars. You're going to be sorry. I'm really upset about this. I felt a little offended, quite frankly.
Big mistake.
Big mistake.
Pretty woman. Big mistake. Huge
mistake on behalf of the advertising team over at Blah 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 Casts. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
What is so offensive about our content? Is it the sex? Is it the drugs? Is it the rock and roll or the violence?
It could be any.
What is so incredibly offensive? Is it me talking about cocaine, strippers, tits, violence? What's so offensive? Aren't we all adults in the room?
Can't they just put like an explicit,
They do. They put an explicit tag. And listen, you can go to this particular podcast application and you can still listen to the commercial break. And that's part of the reason how I found them. I saw that people were listening to this and I was like, oh, then, maybe we should go there and there's some eyeballs there. And I'm just really upset that they didn't accept my advertising. My feelings are hurt.
I know.
But I'm not changing for anybody. No, We have a good friend.
That's right.
Allison Hare. We have a good friend. You didn't even know what I was going to talk about, but you're like, I have a good friend. We have a good friend, Allison Rizk Hare. And she's got a wonderful podcast called Culture Changers. And she has been discussing with someone taking her podcast and putting it on a specific network, right? Mm-hmm. And she was telling me that they had. I don't think she minds me telling the story. They were saying that we just have a couple of guidelines, right? They're just guidelines. Stay within these guidelines. And one of them is, can you cut down on the fucks, mm-hmm. right? Take the fucks mm-hmm. out of it. Now, I've listened to Allison's show. I've listened to a number of Allison's shows. I don't remember hearing a fuck, but maybe there's one in there, one or two. And so she says to me, she goes, so I'm not sure your show's a good fit for this particular. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck does that mean?
What the fuck? I don't fucking understand what the fuck you're talking about. Fuck off. Fucktard. Fucktard. And I understand. This is a podcast of a certain ilk. Maybe it's not everybody's cup of tea. Maybe the kids shouldn't be listening to it. As a matter of fact, I discourage any children from listening to it. Even though if you look at our Spotify statistics, it's mostly children that are listening to it. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
no, you have to be 13 to have a Spotify account. And you know how they verify that? Check this box. Are you 13?
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Which is like the old porn sites when it said check here to make sure you're 18. And I understand
the alcohol sites.
Yeah, I understand.
Are you 21?
Oh, yes, I am. Yeah, there used to be a gas station they'd be like, "Are you 21?" And I'd be like, "Oh, yes, sir, I am."
Of course.
Yes, I've been 21. I've been 21 for the 5 minutes I've been in this store. I've been 21 years old. I just turned 21 when I walked in the door. And I understand it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I don't think that there's any reason to go changing direction quite yet, Hoadley. When Disney comes to me with an opportunity, then we'll have a discussion about, milking up the show a little bit. But I think right now we're going to stay the course, regardless of what blah, blah, blah casts says about our fucking show. So rude.
We stay true to ourselves, Brian.
Yeah, we are going to stay true to ourselves. Yeah. And the truth is, we don't need any more listeners than we already got. We're satisfied. I feel good. Yeah. I feel good with the 67 or so listeners. I feel like all 30 of them that actually download the show and the 2 that listen, I feel good about that.
I do too.
But both of them share my last name, and that is really strange. Both of them have the exact same name as my brothers. It's just really strange, but I feel good about that. I feel like we're making traction. Things are moving ahead. So tell me about, how was your week?
It was good. We're doing a little house hunting now that, I think a lot of people are in the same boat where you are now stuck in quarantine a lot, and you're wondering about your surroundings and how much space is in between all of the people that you have living in the apartment.
You're wondering if you have the 6 feet social distance you need.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we've been doing some house hunting, and that's been it's been fun, but it's also a little frustrating and whatever. Just it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle, right? You have a certain budget you want to stay in, but it's never quite enough.
Nope, never works out quite one. You're like, oh, that's a beautiful house, and they're like, it's $1.4 million. You're like, I have $7,000 to put down on that house.
That is the case. Yeah.
I came here looking for a moped. I bought $1.4 million townhouse. Yeah. And interest rates are low, and you're right. Everyone's looking to get out. The housing market continues to be very strong because people are like, well, I'm going to be doing this for another fucking year at least. Then I want to at least live comfortably, right?
Yeah, and we live in a great
you really
do. Downtown, right in downtown Atlanta. Yeah. There's all kinds of park space, and we can walk to restaurants and shops and all of that. But if the restaurants and shops aren't open,
it's true. It doesn't fucking matter.
Then you're in your place.
You're on your own.
So
you're on your own.
Trying to stay in the neighborhood, but it's a hot neighborhood. So there's a lot going on. We're just we're trying to figure it out, but it's fun.
I say congratulations to you. House hunting is fun. It is a lot of fun and stressful, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And then once you get the new house, you're gonna be in love with it for at least the first 2 days until you hear that first creak or crack, and then you're gonna be like, motherfucker, what did we get ourselves into?
I know. I keep going back and forth with that because I'm like, we're in maintenance-free living and. What about that? But it's all going to be fun. My big thing is I want some outdoor space. Yeah,
I think that's the big difference between
space. So
when I lived in an apartment, I absolutely loved it, but it was just me, and that's all I needed. And it was like 1,000 square foot space with 300 square foot little deck. And I love the community feel of it. It's kind of like my apartment building actually was like friends, right? Everyone knew each other, and we all went to the pool and hung out and drank beers and all this stuff. But you get to a certain point in your life and you're like, well, the 4 walls are kind of closing in on me. I wish I had my own space. And then if you start sharing that space with somebody like you are, and now you're sharing it with multiple people, fuck it. You want some space. You want to be able to get outside and get a little sun on your face and not have to like doll yourself up, walk down the corridor, go down 2 elevators, go through the parking deck, get to, and plus, what are you going to do? The pool's closed. I mean, you shouldn't be at the pool, but the pool is closed anyway because, coronavirus. Yeah. And it's difficult. I totally understand it. But, the good news about an apartment complex, I think, my personal opinion is that with the apartment complex, at least, there is an air of privacy about your apartment. You close the door and you're gone, right? You're essentially gone to the world. And you don't really have to deal with neighbors too much. I mean, they could be bouncing and banging and stuff like that. But there's something a little bit different about a house. A house in a neighborhood, it's like now you gotta, there's neighbors around you, and there's things you gotta think about, and come over for a cup of sugar and a cup of tea. At least that's how it is with me. I live in this wonderful kind of bedroom community north of Atlanta. It's it's lovely.
It is beautiful.
It's lovely, and it's still young and hip, and so we have fun. But we've got the most wonderful neighbors. We hit the neighbor fucking jackpot with this guy, with this a man, a woman, and their 2 children.
A man and his woman.
A man and his woman.
I love
Don't
it.
get it twisted. Don't get it twisted up in here. A man,
great, though.
his women, and
That's
his two
great.
children.
Yes.
And so, they're just lovely people. And the kids cut the grass for me. You know, I pay them, but they cut the grass for me. And when we're away, they take boxes inside, and vice versa. And you know, whatever. It's a lovely
really nice.
situation, and we've never had any issues with them. They've always been lovely. And then there's a person who lives across the street, a man and a woman, a little bit older. I don't know what his name is, and I don't know what her name is. I've never taken the time to learn it. But for the most part, we've been living here on and off for about 6 years. And for the most part, we just wave to them. And occasionally they would come over and they would, you know, the woman mainly, she's much older. She's probably in her early 70s, would come over. She would say hello. And then that would be it, right? Hi, how you doing? Good. You know, it's nice that you painted the house. Thanks very much. You know, your son is lovely. Thank you. Whatever.
That's nice.
Oh, since the pandemic had started, we've started to learn that maybe this lady isn't all crackers and cookies.
To tell.
We saw an ambulance about 3.5 months ago in the front of her house, right when this whole coronavirus started. And I, of course, got nervous. I thought, older lady living in the house with her husband, something happened, coronavirus, right? And she's sick. And the husband she seems relatively healthy, but the husband looks like he has some health problems. So I run over to talk to the paramedic, and I'm like, hey man, you know, what's going on? Like, you know, concerned neighbor, like Mr. Superhero. What's going on? What can I do? What can me as a neighbor? How can I step in and interrupt somebody who, you know, knows my way into somebody else's life?
I know about subwoofers.
Yeah. I know about substations. Does the power go out? Do you want to advertise your podcast?
I know about those two.
How do you feel about online preachers? Have you looked into online dating coaches? So he says, the paramedic has obviously dealt with this kind of bullshit before, because before I even get into the middle of the street, he's like, I can't tell you anything about what's going on. It's against HIPAA compliance. She's fine. You know, go back to your house. That's basically what he said to me. And I was like, that's fucking rude. You know, back when I was a kid, my dad would chase the ambulance down the street. Like, he had a police scanner, and he would show up on scene, and he'd like be out there with like an axe and gloves and a chainsaw, and he'd be like, what can I do? How can I help? You need me to cut the top of that car off? And the police officer would be like, yeah, cut the top of the car off.
Yeah, get it off.
Get it off. I'm going to go get some donuts. You get that off. I'll be back. And my dad was all, you know, this is the way it was back then. But now it's like, you know, HIPAA compliant, and I can't tell you anything, and don't touch me, and, you know, back off. You get sued for, you know, even inquiring. But I was very concerned. So I go to my lovely neighbor, the one next door, and I say, hey, man, did you see that, you know, old Schnitzelputz over there? She... Schnitzelputz.
That's a good one.
Thank you. She went away in the ambulance. And he says, yeah, man, it's really weird. I talked to the husband, and the husband said that she gets mad at him, and she just falls down on the ground and tells him to call 911.
Really?
And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, it's really weird. I've seen ambulances over there quite a few times. And what happens is he just says, he told the old man, the husband of this lady,
yes,
says the lady just falls down. She'll just like fall flat down and be like, call 911. I'm having a problem.
That's one way to do it.
That is one way to do it. So I said, oh, okay. So he said, she's probably fine, you know, but I have her phone number. I'll call and check in on her. A couple days later, yeah, she was fine. It was just an episode, whatever, you know, she might not be all there. And I'm like, okay. It's like 3 days later, the doorbell rings, bing bong. You know, it's coronavirus, right? So you really don't want to answer the door to people, you know, especially when people don't have a mask. She doesn't have a mask. The dogs are going fucking ape shit. You know, the baby's awake. I open the door, and I kind of like, because, you know, if I open the door, the dogs are going to attack her. Like, so I can't just stand there and open the door and keep my distance. So I open the door, and then I like run around her and take my 6 feet behind her, you know, and I'm like, oh, hey, how are you? You know, and I saw it. And she, oh, yes. And she's holding a basket with a bunch of plants in it, like weeds growing out of it. And she's like, and she's got this big farm in the back of her. She turned her backyard into a farm where I think there might be ducks and chickens and frogs.
wow.
And there's like a German Shepherd that hasn't been inside since 1962. Yes, it's like, it's a whole mess. But it's not like the neat kind of garden, you know, like the community garden. It's just a bunch of shit growing back there. And I think she, you know, weeds her way through it to find something. So she's got these plants in a box and she says, I noticed you're having another baby. And I thought it'd be very nice to bring you over some butternut squash. And I go, oh, yeah. And she goes, well, you know, with the pandemic and, you know, the groceries might be going away soon. So I thought you might want to plant some butternut squash. And I thought, well, that is just very incredibly presumptive of you. But, you know, yes, I guess we want, what do you say? I mean, I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess we want the butternut squash.
By the way, butternut squash sucks. I love the taste of it mixed with brown butter prepared in a restaurant. But I'll tell you what, I get this misfit box of produce every other week. Sorry to interrupt you, but I've got, you hit a chord with the butternut squash. So I get this. It's this box, this produce delivery service of this misfit stuff that may not be sold at a grocery store.
Oh, like it's a little off. It's brown, or it looks weird, or it's shaped like a penis.
Misfit.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's misfit. So for like the first few times, every time I would get this butternut squash, and the first time I was like, fantastic! I love butternut squash. Butternut squash ravioli. Mwah. Very good.
Magnifique.
Very delicious. But then I got the butternut squash and was preparing it and trying to make it into this, that, and the other, and it sucks. And then I got it again in the next box, and then I got it again. And then I was like,
well, this lady might be supplying it.
Butternut squash anymore.
This lady might be preparing it. She might be preparing this. That might be where they're getting the misfit butternut squash. Because let me explain. Okay. I agree with you, by the way. Butternut squash, not my favorite thing in the world, unless it's in a restaurant being prepared by a 5-star chef. Yes. And, you know, spaghetti squash all day long. But butternut squash, not for me. Spaghetti squash, I like it with spaghetti sauce. I love it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so the lady, so I say, yeah, you know, what do you say at that point? You know, the neighbor's trying to be nice. And
thank you.
Yeah, and she's got 300. She's like, well,
the baby's crying. Wait, baby's crying. I've got to go.
Oh, I think my dog just passed away. He was really sick. Got to go roll his old bones down to the vet. Got a whole cremation plan prepaid for. So I say to her, I say, you know, she goes, well, I've got 100 of them. And I said, 100 of them. Well, why? I better not take that many because, you know, maybe the next door neighbor wants some, you know, the guy next to me. So now I'm pawning off a visit to him, right? And so she says, you're probably right. Let me give you 50 and I'll give 50 to him. And that should last you all year. And I'm like, it's going to last me a fucking entire lifetime. I mean, first of all, I don't even know how to plant butternut squash. Where am I going to plant butternut squash? I got a 2-year-old. He's just going to pull it up out of the ground. Anyway, I'm growing weeds in my backyard. That's how effective I am at growing. I'm not a horticulturist. I've cut down 3 trees in my yard, all of which were healthy when I moved in and died in the process. So I did something wrong. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And she goes, well, let me tell you, you know, I got 100 butternut squash. No, but, you know, I do have to go. So maybe you can wrap this up pretty quickly. I had a whole package of seeds and I put them in my trunk and they spilled over. Well, I left my trunk open one day and there got water in the trunk. And then the sunlight hit them and they started sprouting right there in my trunk.
No.
And I'm like, oh. And these are those or these or these are those, or you're just telling me a story from a different butternut
squash?
Yeah. And she goes, oh no, they just sprouted. And so I went and I planted them and look, they're sprouting beautifully. And I'm like, that's because they probably have fucking motor oil on them. I mean, that's like, it's just, I don't know what's in your trunk. But who leaves their trunk open for days at a time, right? And I'm like, first of all,
stuff spilling in there, obviously.
Fucking gross. The whole situation's fucking gross, right? And now I'm instantaneously germaphobe. I do not even want to touch the box now. I'm like, you know, you probably grew because coronavirus got into or something. I don't know. Yeah. So I
set it down right over there.
That's what I said. I said, why don't you set that down right there? And I'll have my wife's really she's the good one with the plant. She's going to be the one to put on the gloves and throw it away. So I'm like, you know, what? So whatever. Okay. So butternut squash, right? Now I explained to her that we had a new baby and that we were, I said, listen, I know she's been ringing the doorbell pretty consistently since. And I'm like, I told her, I said, I know you've been ringing the doorbell pretty consistently. And, just understand that we have a baby and it's really tough sometimes to get to the door. Plus, we're trying to keep people out of the house because of coronavirus and stuff like this. And she goes, oh, well, just to let you know, I don't have coronavirus. And I'm like, okay. I don't have coronavirus either, but I don't really fucking know if I have coronavirus, and no one does. That's the whole point. That's why it's a fucking global pandemic. If everyone knew that they had coronavirus, we wouldn't be in the situation that we were in.
Yep.
So 2 weeks after the butternut squash, I get another bing bong at my door, and I'm like, I see that it's her, and I'm like, oh my Christ, I gotta fucking deal with this again. And I come out the door, and she goes, I need your help immediately. And I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on? It's the air conditioner. It fell on my husband.
Whoa.
And I'm like, the air conditioner fell on your husband? How did the air conditioner lift up to fall on your husband? They're usually sitting on a cement pad. I don't know who was lifting it up. And she's like, oh my gosh, can you come over and help, Bob, let's call him Bob. Can you come over and help Bob put the air conditioner back? And I'm like, what? Put the air conditioner back? And don't worry, we don't have coronavirus. And I'm like, oh my God. I go inside, I get a mask, I get gloves, I get a triage suit. I run across the street, and I'm like, if Bob's really under an air conditioner here, I might be a party to a murder, right? Like, that's what I'm thinking in my head, is that someone threw the air conditioner on top of Bob because she got upset. Then she's like, come in my house. And I'm like, where's the air conditioner? And she's like, it's up in the room. And I'm like, you have an air conditioner up in the room? What do you? And she's like, it's a window air conditioner. And I'm like, oh, a window air conditioner. So I run upstairs into this room that, by the way, is like something out of Hoarders Buried Alive from TLC.
Really?
Yes, it's just, it's unbelievable. And Bob is literally sitting, like it's on his chest. The thing is on his chest, and he's trying to push it up into the window, right? And I'm like, oh my God, let me let me help you. And so I help him, and I get it in the window. And she said, but we need to take that one out because that one is the bad one, and we're replacing the new one. And I'm like, how did you expect to get this out? And it's like all attached and everything. And she says, well, I was just going to push it out the window. And I'm like, listen, you're going to kill somebody. You're going to push it out the window? You know what I'm saying? And
Just
she goes,
shove the old one out. Put the new one in.
God, you don't live in Manhattan. Like, you're just going to shove an air conditioner out the window? Or you're just going to leave it there and let it rot? I mean, so I say, listen, let's think about this a little more delicately. You have the new one. Yes, we do. And then she says, because this one hasn't worked in at least 3 days. And I said, oh, okay, well, it's unplugged. Did you notice it was unplugged? No. Ooh. I said, well, maybe we could try plugging it in. And she's like, well, who would have unplugged it? And I'm like, well, I just don't know. There are cats. Live here. I know. I don't live here, nor do I want to. I just want to be out of here as soon as possible. So if we plug this thing in and get it turned on, I'm going to be immediately out the door. So I'm like, there's dog, there's cats, there's all kind of things in here that I'm allergic to. I'm like, holy, I'm going fucking nuts. I plug the thing in and I turn it on and it turns on, and I turn around and I go, see? And she's lighting up a cigarette in her room, in the room. And I'm like, oh my fucking Christ. You got to be kidding me. We're in the middle of a fucking pandemic. I'm sitting here in, the Atlanta Zoo, part 2, and butternut squash heaven. She doesn't know how to plug anything in. So I'm like, forget about it. I'm so glad that I could. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you could. You want to smoke? No, I don't want to smoke. I got to go back to the baby. I got in the house and I deloused myself. I literally took off my clothes at the front door and went in and went straight to a shower.
Took a shower.
Yeah, it was fucking disgusting. Fucking disgusting. And so, okay. So now, let's fast forward to 3 days ago. 3 days ago, Schnitzelputz comes up. Can't stop laughing every time I say that. Schnitzelputz comes over, rings the doorbell again, rings the doorbell a third time. She won't go away. And I'm like, fuck, man. Okay, let me go see what's going on. So she goes, have you seen anybody in the front of my house? And I'm like, no, wasn't looking, but no, I haven't seen anybody in the front of your house. Someone stole meat from my freezer. And I'm like, oh, That does sound like a problem. Someone stole meat from your freezer? Like the freezer you have in your house? The freezer I have in my house stole meat right from it. And I'm looking for the culprits. And I'm like, what are you looking at? You think I took the meat from your freezer? What do you want me to do? Well, I noticed that you have one of these doorbell cameras. And I was wondering if you could go through the footage and see if you see anybody stealing meat from my freezer. I'm like, you are 620 yards away from my front door. Why do you think that I would be able to determine whether or not someone's stealing meat from the inside of your fucking house? Hoadley, this goes on. Then I go outside, and then the lady meets me out in the driveway. She's like catching me before I get in the car, and she's like, "Did you have a chance to go through the?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't have a chance to go." I actually, you know what? Yes, I did go through the footage.
Baby.
I have a brand new baby. I don't have time to be going through my Ring doorbell footage. I don't even, if someone stole meat from my freezer, I don't know if I had time to go through. Like, I don't care all that much.
No.
If they stole meat from your freezer, it's because they're hungry. Like, just leave it alone. Like, maybe it was that dog that you have in the backyard you haven't fed in 3 years. Maybe he stole meat from your fucking freezer. And besides, you've got 6,000 butternut squash plants back there. You're going to survive, Bobby. I promise you're going to survive.
Yes.
So this goes on, and now she's meeting my wife at the front. She's meeting my wife before she gets in. She wants to talk to her about this and that and the other thing. Now she bought herself an infrared camera system that has to be plugged in. It's not by batteries, and she wants to hang it from the tree. And she wants to know if I'll come over and help her hang it from the tree.
You're the installer now.
The problem with living in a neighborhood, in a house, is that you can sometimes hit the neighbor jackpot like I did, with the guys next door, or you can sometimes hit the neighbor fucking cuckoo list like the one across the street. And the thing is I can't get away from it. It's not like I can just close my apartment door and pretend that I'm not here.
Yep.
If my car's out front, they know that I'm here, and they're going to come and they're going to knock on the door until I answer the fucking door. Plus, I got a 2-year-old. Every time that the doorbell rings, I got like one of those side glass panels, right? So it's not, so every time the doorbell rings, my son runs up to the side glass panel and just like puts his face against it. He's like, hello? One time I answered through the Ring doorbell. I'd never used that Ring doorbell ever in my life, like to talk to somebody. But one time she came over, it's like a week ago, and she's like, ding dong. And I'm like, hey, Bobby, it's Bryan. Listen, I can't come to the door. I'm on a conference call. And she's like, you can see she's like putting her ear next to the thing through the camera. And she's like, you're on a what? I'm on a conference call. I can't come to the door. I'm talking to you through the Ring doorbell. The what? The doorbell. I just rang it. Oh, yeah. No. It's the doorbell. That's how I'm talking to you. Where are you, honey? I can't see you. I'm in the doorbell. I'm inside the doorbell. Wow. Can you come outside? No, I'm sorry. I'm on a conference call. How are you talking to me through the doorbell if you're on a conference call? I'm just pretending to be on a conference call. This is how you take a hint. How does your doorbell do that? Listen, I can't get into all the details right now, but as soon as I get off this conference call, I'm going to think about some other things I have to do, and then I'll be over like later on tonight, 2 or 3 in the morning.
Leave the meat out.
That's right. Leave the venison out front.
Wow. You bring up a good point, though.
I do. You got to make. It's never a bad idea. When I have sold houses before. Excuse me. When I've sold houses before, one real estate agent that I worked with actually had her clients go and knock on the door to the left, to the right, and across the street of everybody. Everybody that they signed before they signed a contract. She had them go ring the doorbell and introduce themselves and have a conversation, because she's like, I've run into so many clients that have, buyer's remorse because of some bullshit that happened afterwards. And she's like, and so I think it's just a wise idea. Now, I don't suggest you do that. Living in the city is a little bit different than living out here. Like in the city, I think everybody kind of like insulates themselves. They don't really get involved in other people's business, but you could end up with like a kooky neighbor who's like recording.
Oh, I mean, I grew up with tons of kooky neighbors throughout my years growing up.
You had 4 or 5 schnitzelputzes?
Oh, my gosh. My mom, I remember just her talking about, she's like, why do we always end up with the crazy neighbors?
And here's the thing. The neighbors are saying the same thing about us. She's probably like, I went over to talk to Bryan, and he was inside the doorbell.
Yeah, he's crazy.
He's crazy. He found
he's doing some kind of thing.
He's got a conference call through the doorbell.
Yep. That's the way it works.
Let me give you a quick update, if you'd like, on Michelle and Michael from Married at First Sight, Australia.
Yes, please.
So now, so we told the story last week, and you can go back and listen to episode number 17. I don't want to rehash every detail. We don't necessarily have time for that. But basically, an older couple on this show, Married at First Sight in Australia, got married at first sight, meaning they did not know each other before they got married, and they're a little bit older. They're in their 50s. And so they got married, and they've been going along swimmingly. Cute couple, everyone rooting for them. Everyone really likes them. And then he tells her on the last episode, I'm not attracted to you physically at all. Chrissy and I debated the merits of that, and you can go back and listen. But in this show, you either say, there's a commitment ceremony every week where you either say, I'm going to stay or I'm going to leave. If one person says leave and one says stay, they are required to stay an extra week and see if they can figure it out. And that's what happened. He said leave and she said stay. So now we're in the week where they're, during the week before the commitment ceremony. Mm-hmm. And this happens to be the week when the women go back to the men's hometowns to live with them in their own house, in their own environment for a week. So now it's like the men's opportunity to show the women what they're up to. And I guess next week they flip-flop. The women get to show the men what they're up to, right? Mm-hmm. And so they go back to his hometown of Adelaide or wherever it is in Australia. And he owns a pretty popular barbershop and beauty salon. And then, he lives in a relatively nice place. So they go. But one of the things that it seems like all the couples were doing is they were having a dinner of some sort or a social get together for friends and family so that they could see, they could meet those people and see how they interact with them.
Yes.
Well, Michael puts together a nice dinner with his business partner and some of his friends, and they're all sitting around quaintly, having a dinner. And in the middle of the dinner, someone asks, well, how's the marriage going? How are you two getting along? And Michael decides to rehash the same conversation that happened last week. He says, I love her to death. I'd do anything for her, but I'm just not attracted to her. And she absolutely, and he says, and I told her this last week because I was hoping that the attraction would grow. And so I told it, that's why I waited to tell her, right? And so she starts flipping out and she's like, why are you saying this at a dinner in front of everybody? Mm-hmm. And the other people in the room are completely discounting what she's saying. She's like, my feelings are hurt. I felt betrayed. I wish you would have told me sooner. You were telling the camera this, but you weren't telling me this, and I'm your wife. Well, all the other people, and he was, to be fair, he was. And I mean, it is an odd situation. So the whole table starts turning on her, and they're like, no, you're taking this all the wrong way. He was trying to protect your feelings. And she's like, all I want is someone to fucking validate that, my feelings are hurt here. And no one seems to be doing it. It's like she's living in a bubble. She says something and everyone's like, no, you're wrong. Right. And so I kind of am starting to feel for her. So at the end of the program, they get into yet another blow up fight where it looks like shit is headed in the wrong direction. And I'm really sad about this. I just don't think that you can be in a marriage long term, especially not one that's brand new. And I don't think you can start off on that foot without some kind of physical attraction. I really don't. I mean, it's just my personal opinion, but I would have a hard time doing it. And so sadly, my guess is that this is the last week that these two are going to be together, because I just don't know if you can make it work when you don't have any physical attraction.
I don't think you can. I really don't. I mean, not in the long term.
We'll see. Maybe I'm going to be surprised.
Unless you have some kind of like arrangement,
Yeah, like an arrangement. Like I'll go, and I have known a couple couples who do have arrangements like that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I don't know that they're not attracted to each other, but they have arrangements. Like I knew a couple that once a month they could go out on a date with whoever they wanted to, and they got the apartment to themselves. Yeah. And they just like be bringing people home and screwing them once a month. And it was, I was like blown out of my mind. I think personally, there's a term for this. You know what the term is? Mm-mm. What's the term for people who go, like swingers?
No. Oh, well, polyamory?
Polyamory. Yes. Do you know what I think polyamory means in French? My marriage isn't working. That's what I think.
Right.
That's what I think it means. Right.
But we want to actually stay married.
Yeah.
So we're going to try this.
Correct. But there's lots of people who will disagree with me, and they're adamant that polyamory is a lifestyle that can be sustained. Now,
I think there's enough people that I've heard about that do this. So hey, you know what? Each to their own.
They each to their own. It's not for me, but each to their own.
You're not hurting anyone. or adults or children in the arrangement, I think, well, hey, get your rocks off.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know people like personally that polyamory is just the way that they've always lived, and they advocate for it, and it's something that they don't think that monogamy is a way that people should live, right? And so God bless them, to each their own. Yeah. I just personally don't think that's something I could do.
But I think still in those instances, there was an initial attraction.
Oh, for sure. There was all my friends.
That's kind of what we're talking about.
And by the way, my friends rolled that back because you know what happened? A relationship started with one of the women that the man was dating, and the wife was not having it. She's like, this is not what we agreed to. We didn't agree to relationships. We agreed to sex. We didn't agree to relationships. And now they're back together. And quite frankly, I think, at least from the outside, looks like they're better than ever, right? Now, I mean, who am I? I'm not... I happen to be a marriage expert, but that's just because I've gotten a couple master's degrees online.
Oh, you know a little bit about everything, Bryan Green.
I'm useless as a tit on a bull, Hoadley. I promise you that. What lovely things people are saying and what lovely reviews people are leaving. And I'm just couldn't be more happy about the listeners on the show. They're super engaged. And so I say thank you to all the people listening around the world. I'll leave it at that. Go to tcbpodcast.com. That's where you can find out more about the show. That's where you can find show notes, find out more about Chrissy and I. This has been sitting up here for 6 months. How long have we been doing the show? 4 months, 5 months? This thing has been sitting up here reminding me of what to say, and I still can't get it right. Go to tcbpodcast.com. That's where you can find all the show notes, find out more about Chrissy and I, and you can join the break room. And now that there's the first episode of the first volume of the break room, you'll get that right in your inbox as soon as you sign up. You can't miss it. It's right on the website. So go and do that at The Commercial Break on Insta, YouTube, Facebook, and all the other socials. Hoadley, I love you.
I love you too, Bryan Green.
We're going to get through this. I know we are. I'm not sure when we're going to get through this, but we are going to get through this. But the good news is we're never going to run out of butternut squash. Butternut trunk squash. We're never going to run out of trunk squash. I promise you that. Isn't that fucking disgusting? Trunk squash?
Yeah, no, that's not good.
Who wants squash that's been growing on someone's trunk carpet?
It's sprouted. Get a driveway that goes in the back of your house. So
yeah, I know. I know. It's that big driveway in the front of the house that just puts everybody off. People always turning around in it too. And
I bet.
You know, a lot of people walk up and they ring the door. I guess the house just looks inviting. It's like, oh, let's go bother those people. Maybe it's just my cross to bear. I'm just a wildly handsome and attractive man. Let's go see that guy.
You are.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next week on The Commercial Break. Bye.
Ooh, bye.
Email us at thecommercialb@gmail.com. Find us and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Commercial Break. New episodes drop every Wednesday. We can be found on Spotify, iHeartMedia, Apple, Google, and all major podcast providers. The Commercial Break is a great middleweight production. Written and produced by Bryan Green. Co-hosted by Chrissy Hoadley.
How's your money feeling? It's about to feel happier with a certificate from Happy Money's partner, Michigan State University Federal Credit Union. Elevate and increase your savings with 18-month terms and only a $500 minimum. And the happiest part? MSU FCU certificates yield 4.5% APY annual percentage yield. Now that's a happier side of money. Elevate your savings. Go to happymoney.com/MSUFCU. That's MSUFCU. Funds insured up to $250,000 by NCUA. The APY is accurate as of the 12/1/2023 dividend declaration date. Early withdrawal penalties do apply. Fees may reduce earnings on the account. Any monthly withdrawals or transfers reduce earnings. How's your money feeling? It's about to feel happier with a certificate from Happy Money's partner, Michigan State University Federal Credit Union. Elevate and increase your savings with 18-month terms and only a $500 minimum. And the happiest part? MSU FCU certificates yield 4.5% APY annual percentage yield. Now that's a happier side of money. Elevate your savings. Go to happymoney.com/MSUFCU. That's MSUFCU. Funds insured up to $250,000 by NCUA. The APY is accurate as of the 12/1/2023 dividend declaration date. Early withdrawal penalties do apply. Fees may reduce earnings on the account. Any monthly withdrawals or transfers reduce earnings.